Welcome back to the third installment of Inside Phantoms Hockey alongside Jake Drzezinski and Sean Takachi. I'm Sean Stewart. Well, boys, how'd your weekends go?
I would have liked a better outcome for the Phantoms, but all things considered, we're still alive and we got next week to go ahead.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Wish we had a couple more W's on the board, but we'll talk about that here in just a minute.
And you are absolutely right. The Phantoms, unfortunately, going 0-2 on the weekend with the shootout loss on Friday and the shutout loss on Saturday. What were your guys' big takeaways from these two games?
I think Friday, was a little bit of a better game for us. I mean, Saturday we came out rather flat. I'm just happy the boys, at least got a point out of the weekend. With the Friday shootout losing game, we at least got 1 point by going into overtime. And those little points are going to count here. The thing that, reminds me most of this season was last season. We started off very poorly last year, and look, we made it farthest we've ever made it.
I mean, going on top of that, just watching both the games from the press box, Friday night, we truly dominated that game all the way until about 49 seconds left where Jagger Joshua decides to haunt us. Saturday was probably the first game that I would say the Phantoms did not win most of those battles, most of those puck battles. Probably the first game that we actually got outplayed compared to the other couple games at obviously the Lemieux Center and Friday night's game.
Yeah, the Lemieux Center, obviously the end result, not what we wanted. However, the Phantoms dominating play and really dominating play on Friday as well with Jagger Joshua, the former Phantom, really just redirecting a shot right in front of John Moore. Not much John Moore could do about that. And then the game going to a 5-minute 3-on-3 overtime, which I thought both teams played very, very well in, and then unfortunately the shootout not going the Phantoms' way with the Jacks coming away with the victory there. And then on Saturday, just a tough break all around. Energy was low throughout the entire team. Power play couldn't get going, and that was one thing that we saw down in Pittsburgh was something, although not producing a lot of scoring points, still was something that was able to generate a lot of momentum for the Phantoms, just unfortunately could not get it going on Saturday.
So I brought it up in the pregame with Matt Lipcsak and Western Reserve Radio. That first game, I mentioned John Moore coming into that weekend really need to have two big games, and I thought he did. I thought he played excellent in both games. 3 goals against Saturday, 2 of those are on the power play.
When you consider John Moore's performance down in Cranberry Fall Classic, comparing it to this weekend, worlds different, worlds better. I think John Moore had an excellent weekend. Unfortunately, the scores didn't show that way for him, but I mean, he had a great weekend.
And as you mentioned, Sean, going in Saturday night's game, I said we had to convert on the power play, and unfortunately, we didn't do that. Through those 2 games, we went 0 for 11 on the power play, and that's it's kind of unacceptable. I mean, you need to take advantage of those opportunities. But the one positive you can take was the penalty kill that we had. The Lumberjacks are a very good power play team, and we stopped them all on but 2 Saturday. We killed off 9 of the 11 power plays, and hopefully going into this next weekend, we don't commit that many penalties going forward, but it's good to see that when we do, we're able to, kill it and then recover and move on.
Good. We always know those Muskegon games are going to be high in penalty minutes between 2 fierce rivals. And again, we'll see Muskegon this Sunday, this time in Michigan. So going to be another tough test for the Phantoms here in this early season. But I think that there is a lot of chances for the Phantoms to go out on the road and get a victory.
I mean, going back to, the positives for the game, you mentioned, power play and how our penalty kill was okay. Our being able to find one another, I guess our chemistry was what really stood out to me. There was a lot of shots on goal, but if you look at the shots on goal, the quality of the shots on goal is what really stood out. You have these cross-ice passes that are standing out, making Busey stand on his head. Those are the goals that are going to, make the difference in a game like this. It's one thing to get, 20, 30 shots on net, but if you don't get anything that's a realistic chance, it doesn't matter. And the Phantoms had that this weekend. They had those good chances that should have produced for them. And, The luck will turn one way or another. The ice will tilt our way. We'll get those points.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about momentum swings, and whenever sometimes your offense just puts in way more goals than you really need on a given night. And unfortunately, some games when you only need 2 goals, you unfortunately don't get it. But one player that stood out to me during both those games was Matt DeMellis. He looked extremely, extremely good with his opportunities. He was picking his pockets better than anyone out in that rink. He just wasn't able to convert. Very good on his edges, skating-wise. I'm excited to see more of him.
And we'll hear from Phantoms broadcaster Matt Lipcsak here in just a bit. But, we're talking about John Moore. We talked about the power play. One thing that I did notice, that at least more so on Friday than Saturday, the Phantoms 5-on-5. We talk about special teams. That's been huge. It was especially huge down in Cranberry. But when they're playing even strength, the Phantoms, I thought, played very, very well on Friday. Saturday, obviously, Muskegon kind of came rearing back, got a little energy from that shootout win on Friday. But all in all, Friday, I thought even strength, the Phantoms played extremely well.
Yeah, if you were here at the Cavalli Center, I'm sure you probably saw, or even if you were watching on Hockey TV, to me it looked like Brandon Busey for Muskegon the Friday night. He was lunging for a lot of pucks. He was really trying to cover the puck, anticipate it, get his guys a break, because, the Phantoms were just swarming. It was great puck possession.
And I think you have to look at Friday as more of a positive game than Saturday. But the one complaint I have with Friday is when you have Busey moving like that, you got to capitalize. You can't determine on John Moore, carrying you through a shootout. Shootouts are those last-ditch efforts that you never, ever want to rely on. I would have really liked a goal out of the Phantoms during that overtime session and not going into the shootout.
Unfortunately, the puck not bouncing the Phantoms' way. Busey standing on his head in both games, really. If Phantoms able to kind of capitalize on those chances there on Saturday, game might have turned out to be a little bit different. However, you got to give credit to Brandon Busey and the Muskegon Lumberjacks for shutting out the Phantoms on Saturday. But the nice thing about hockey and the fact that we're so early in the season is we get to do it all again on Sunday.
This is the first road game. I know technically Cranberry's a road game, but Cranberry's an hour away. We're actually, going on the road and getting a chance to get out there into the rest of the USHL's territory and see what we can do on the road. I wouldn't nearly count Cranberry a testament of how the away teams are going to go for the Phantoms, and I am interested to see how this weekend's going to bring about that.
And we'll hear from Matt Lipcsak here in just a little bit on his thoughts. But go ahead, Sean. You wanted to say something else about this past weekend?
Yeah, it's going to be a pretty interesting stretch of games here. We got 4 games in a span of 1 week, essentially. And it's going to be a total of 642 miles traveled those 6 games, or 6 days. That's about 10 hours of travel. And these teams played well so far throughout the first early going couple weeks of the season here. Teams that we need to watch out and beat: Cedar Rapids and Muskegon, who will both are both 1-2 in points so far. And Waterloo's not that far behind them too. They have yet to lose a game in regulation as well. So it's going to be a critical stretch of games here.
The other thing about these road teams is that these aren't professionals. These are kids, that are, first time away from home, first time, getting into the more professional and more serious hockey sense. These are, these are the long stretches that, bring more mental stress than physical stress. And I think that's what the Phantoms are going to have to do is, bring their mental toughness and bring them into an incredible testament of competition for the next couple of days. Sean, you made a great point about Muskegon and Waterloo. These are going to be tough games. These are going to what defines the Phantom season, and we hope for the best for them, and we'll watch and see what happens.
And one of the things we noticed from last year when the team went on a long road trip early in the season, really helped them come together, kind of find themselves a little bit, get a couple points on the road, and that can really help build chemistry coming back home.
Yeah, Sean, you make that good point of team bonding. When teams are home now, they have all of their host families, which we, want to give a quick shout out to all of those hosts and billets. Thank you for taking care of our teammates. But those teammates are 20, 30 miles away from each other at times. When you're on the road, you're in a hotel, you're literally doors down from each other. You have all your team meals together, all of your morning workouts together, all of your morning skates together. Those are the times where you get to, build that chemistry and take it to the next level and build that team bond that's so tight.
Yeah, and thankfully with this road trip, I mean, 3 of those games are all going to be pretty close to each other. You're going to be able to spend a little bit more time with each other. It's critical to spend time, get to know each other as a person. So, I mean, it makes you want to kind of go out there and fight for them and play better, knowing who they are as a person and not just as a hockey player.
And we will hope to see that bond get stronger this week as the Phantoms play 4 games next weekend, starting with a road trip in Muskegon. We'll make sure we hear from Phantoms broadcaster Matt Lipcsak here in the next segment. We'll get his thoughts on this past weekend as well as moving forward for the long road trip ahead. You're listening to Inside Phantoms Hockey.
Want to feed the family and enjoy great hockey? The Youngstown Phantoms have just what you need. Come to the Cavelli Center on October 26th and celebrate the 2017-18 Eastern Conference champions with all-you-can-eat seats. For as low as $20, you get as many hot dogs, burgers, and fountain drinks as you desire while watching your Phantoms raise their Eastern Conference championship banner. Call 330-747-7825 for your tickets today.
Welcome back to Inside Phantoms Hockey. It is now time to take a listen to the man up in the broadcast booth, the voice of the Phantoms, Mr. Matt Lipcsak. Matt, thanks for joining us on the show.
Hi, Sean. Great to be here.
Well, Matt, obviously 2 games this past weekend not going our way, but tell us some things that you noticed up in the broadcast booth.
Well, so far, especially the Friday night game against Muskegon, it almost seemed like a complete 180-degree twist from the games down at the Fall Classic in Cranberry. The boys looked mentally prepared. They looked ready to go. Really, it was, it was 59 minutes and 11 seconds of solid hockey. And, nothing you're going to do about Jagger Joshua tipping one in from the edge of the crease right there to ruin John Moore's shutout bid. But, and then you look at the Saturday game, and it seemed like a complete 180 from the Friday game. It seemed like the Phantoms were a little tentative, as we heard from head coach Brad Patterson after the game. The Phantoms didn't want to go to the hard areas, didn't want to go to the front of the net, didn't want to win puck battles, didn't want to put in the work. And, it really did kind of show out of the 3 goals that John Moore allowed on Saturday night, I don't think you could say that a single one of them was his fault. So it'll be interesting to see how this week of practice comes together for the guys, and if they can try to get back on the right track on Sunday when they go to take on the Lumberjacks again.
Matt, this early in the season, you have to look at these 2 goalies that are fighting for that starting position. You mentioned, John Moore having an excellent game Saturday. I'd argue he'd have an excellent weekend. John had one of the best, not necessarily most shots faced, but one of the most athletic saves we've seen this season or most of last season. Any comments on that?
Yeah, I thought, the season opener on Thursday at the Fall Classic, John let in a couple of soft ones, but he bounced back tremendously this last weekend. And as I said, out of those 4 goals that he allowed this past weekend, you can't say that a single one of them was his fault. Unfortunately, the guys in front of him were only able to give him 1 goal of support. So really, John Moore, was, I don't want to say he struggled, but, he got stuck in a pitcher's duel, and unfortunately he came out on the wrong end of it because, Brandon Busey had an amazing weekend down in the Lumberjacks crease, and it ended up getting him the goaltender of the week honors.
Speaking towards that, how are the Phantoms going to fix their scoring touch? I mean, a lot of great opportunities, but we haven't been able to put one in the back of the net when we need it most.
Well, like head coach Brad Patterson said, you got to get more bodies to the net. Brandon Busey did give up a few rebounds, but when he did give up rebounds, there wasn't anybody within 5 feet of the crease there to try to whack it home. So it's probably going to start there, getting more bodies to the net. I mean, even on the power play opportunities that we've seen, and the power play has, had a few opportunities, but I think they're 0 for their last 14 or somewhere in that area. It has been 3 games without a power play goal. just, there's no net front at all. So it's going to start there, getting more pucks on net and getting more bodies to the net.
We saw Gianfranco Casero having an excellent power play at the Fall Classic. What do you expect more out of him for the road games and the next couple of home games to follow?
Well, I think G is one of the main returning veterans there. He's done a great job quarterbacking the power play so far. That top power play unit with Casero on the back end has looked very good. Matt DeMellis has provided some great shots from the circle, as is Liam Robertson, and Brett Murray down low is just going to be Brett Murray down low. He's a house down there whenever he does get to the front of the net. So, Gianfranco Casero really just needs to get the puck to the net and let his guys do the work and just keep distributing the puck the way he has. I think, through these first 4 games, he's looked great back there at the point on the power play.
We're here with Phantoms broadcaster Matt Lipcsak. And Matt, you mentioned Brett Murray. That was definitely one thing we saw at the Fall Classic was him putting his 6'5" frame right in front of the net, able to get those second, third, and fourth chances right on the net mouth. Kind of something that we were missing this weekend, it seems.
Yeah, Sean, I could not agree with you more. As you started talking about it, I was just thinking to myself, at the Fall Classic, Brett was really using his frame, using the free arm to hold off defenders, and the other hand to carry the puck forward and, force his way toward the net. Or, on the 1 5-on-3 goal that the Phantoms scored, I think that was Matt DeMellis' goal. It was Joey Abate and Brett Murray right there at the front of the cage. And, as I think about the games from this past weekend, I can't remember Brett being down there, toward the edge of the crease much at all, and that's not an indication on him. Maybe things were drawn up differently against Muskegon, but I will say that it was something that was missing. There just was not a lot of net front presence this past weekend against Muskegon. That's not just on Brett. I think that's on all 12 forwards, or 13, I guess, is what we're allowed to skate with now.
So Matt, just as mentioned with Brett Murray, is there anything else that you've seen in a change of game from his first stint as a Phantom to now his second stint here in Youngstown?
Well, I think that, that first stint that he had in Youngstown when he was here for the first half of the season a couple of years ago, it just kind of seemed to me that, Brett at 6'5", at 17, 18 years old, he was used to always being the biggest guy on the ice, and maybe and as weird as this is going to sound, he would seem a little timid because as the biggest guy on the ice, if he knocks somebody down, it almost looks like a penalty every time because he is the biggest guy on the ice. And then, at the Fall Classic, we actually saw him using his size and using that big body of his to push people around, but legally. And it was a revelation to me to see, okay, this guy, maybe he's figured it out now. So I hope we continue to see that growth and maturation from Brett.
And maybe part of that growth was getting a chance to go off and play some college hockey over there at Penn State. Of course, Brett now committed to the University of Miami here in Ohio. So going to stay local, and hopefully he can continue to grow his game this season. Matt, kind of moving forward now, we're looking ahead to a long road trip. If you remember from last season, when the Phantoms went on the road, they had that long stretch there. I think it was early November, mid-November, where it really seemed like the bond that they formed really just strengthened. They came back almost a different team. Kind of hoping for the same thing here on this next road trip?
Oh, absolutely, Sean. It's one of the things that Coach Patterson likes to talk about is that, these long road trips, and the Phantoms have 4 games upcoming on the road. When the team doesn't have the distractions of being at home, I got to get my family tickets, I got to spend some time with my mom and dad while they're in town, and all the stuff that goes around being at home, it just kind of goes away when you're on the road, which is you and the guys, and you can really focus on coming together as a team, and hopefully that camaraderie off the ice then transfers to being on the ice. So yeah, I think that this really couldn't come at a better time for the Phantoms getting to spend these next 20 days or so on the road.
Yeah, so Matt, we're talking about those 20 days. Those are, the crucial parts of the season when it comes to team building and team bonding. But let's talk about, this early part of the road trip versus, having this road trip in the middle of the season. Is it any indicative behavior for the beginning of the season to have these 20 games versus, having 2 games away and then coming home for 2 games and then having 2 more games away?
I think it is nice to get, a few games in a row on the road. Like we said, to get some time away from the home ice. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's great having the guys at home. That means I actually, get to, come to the arena and do my job as well, which I do love doing. But I'm sure for the guys, it's great to just get on the road and spend some time with your teammates and actually come together as a team. They come here in September or late August, early September. There's training camp, there's school, and everything around it. And so you finally get to go on the road and just come together as a hockey team. So the ability to do that early in the season, I can't see that being a detriment at all to the Youngstown Phantoms.
Shifting gears here, Matt. Obviously, I'm in the booth with you, helping you call the games. Now that you've seen 4 games of the Phantoms, what players really got you excited moving forward here with the Phantoms?
I've been impressed by Jason Dobé early on. Can't say I knew anything about him coming in, but he seems like a very solid defenseman so far. Gianfranco Casero, it's great to see him back out there and healthy. He was really making some strides last season until he got those few lower body injuries that he ran into. So it's great to see G back out there on the ice. And as far as the forwards go, I've been really impressed with Liam Robertson and Matt DeMellis. They both seem to have a nose for the net, and both of them seem to have a wicked shot as well. So I guess those would be a couple of the players that have impressed me so far here through the first 4 games.
Obviously, 2 home games against Muskegon, and then right back on the road and get to take on Muskegon this Sunday here. Do you think we see any carryover from these 2 games into Sunday's matchup?
I think the Phantoms are probably going to be frustrated at the way that Saturday's game went. And I think you could probably also see for folks that were at the game how the game got a little chippier as we went on until referee Zane Stout finally had to pull everybody aside and say, hey, everybody, enough's enough, or somebody's getting tossed. So I think we may see some of that emotion and angst and anger really on the part of the Phantoms just carry over to Sunday. And I mean, hopefully it doesn't devolve into a whistle fest, but I do hope we see some good, solid Youngstown Phantoms hockey, and I hope the guys can come away with their first win of the year as well.
Matt, we kind of are starting a tradition here on the podcast where, we want to predict our first pick for whoever scores first. Who do you got for Sunday against Muskegon? Who's scoring first for the Phantoms?
Who is scoring first for the Phantoms? Jake, you're putting me on the spot right now. I'm going to give it to Jack Malone because Jack had a great weekend. He's looked great in the couple of games that he's got to play after he missed the opening game of the Fall Classic with a shoulder injury, but now he's back, and he looks like he's flying out there. His head's up. He's making some great passes. I'd love to see him shoot the puck a little more, but that's just me being picky. I really wish that his dad would have sent some ribs up to us on Saturday while from the tail. But I guess I'm asking for too much.
Well, hopefully Jack and the rest of the Phantoms get things going this weekend, pick up a couple of points there in Muskegon, and get their first win as well.
It sounds like a plan to me, Sean.
Well, Matt, thanks so much for joining us on Inside Phantoms Hockey. Enjoy the rest of the week with no Phantoms Hockey here at home, and then we'll see you on October 26th for banner raising night.
All right, Sean, looking forward to it.
Alrighty, fans, that was Voice of the Phantoms, Matt Lipcsak, joining us on Inside Phantoms Hockey. We'll be right back to look at the upcoming road trip. You're listening to Inside Phantoms Hockey.
Stay up to date on all the latest Phantoms news by following along on our social media channels. Hear exclusive interviews and behind-the-scenes action you won't see anywhere else. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook for all the latest news surrounding the Youngstown Phantoms. Don't miss out and follow us today.
Welcome back to Inside Phantoms Hockey. Thanks to Voice of the Phantoms, Matt Lipcsak, for joining us in the last segment. And now it's time to take a look ahead at the week that is to come. 4 games in 7 days for the Phantoms, all on the road, starting off this Sunday in Muskegon. And then it's off to Waterloo on Thursday, Dubuque Friday, and Cedar Rapids on Saturday. So tough stretch coming up here for the Phantoms.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the way that Muskegon, kind of silenced the Phantoms on Saturday from the tough loss on Friday. I know from being a hockey player most of my life that you don't let those games affect you when you get a chance to play them again on the road. We've gotten a week to, cool down, collect our thoughts. The Phantoms are vindictive. They're going to, come back with a strong force. Only thing I got to say with that is you got to be careful on the PIMs. You don't want to take unnecessarily penalty minutes just because, this team has gotten you 2-0 at home. You want to, play a clean game, play a hard game, but, keep your head where it needs to be.
Yeah, so, going back to it, this stretch here, Muskegon's 4-0. They have yet to lose a game. Waterloo's 2-0, 1-1, have yet to lose a game in regulation. And Cedar Rapids is 3-0-1 as well. Those are 3 pretty good teams playing right now. It seems like they hit their midseason stride almost at the beginning of the year. Dubuque 1-1. They've already beaten us. So now this road trip turns into redemption. We got to beat Muskegon, beat Dubuque for those early losses, and then 2 tough matchups with Waterloo and Cedar Rapids.
And it's our second taste at Western Conference competition there in Waterloo. Had our first at the UPMC Lemieux Center against the Tri-City Storm. We saw what kind of game that was, and I have a feeling that the Phantoms able to handle Waterloo very, very capably last year. And Waterloo was one of the hottest teams in the league, so Phantoms definitely not one to shy away from these tough games and these tough battles. But just got to be able to keep your head down. As we've heard several times, cooler heads will prevail, and just got to beat them where it counts most, and that's on the scoreboard.
We, these are the games that you have to leave everything on the ice for. The way most of the USHL is structured, you play one Friday night and you play one on Saturday night. These are 4 teams at 4 different arenas. There's not, we didn't get them tonight, let's get them tomorrow. We got to go in 100% every game. Play till all 60 minutes are up. You look at that first Muskegon game, got finished late in the third period. You got to play all 60 minutes till the buzzer ends and leave it all out there.
So we mentioned this in the beginning segment about special teams with the power play and penalty kill. This is what's going to be critical here. We had a tough go at it with Muskegon on both ends of the on the one end of the spectrum, but now that second game against Waterloo, they're leading the league in power play percentage and penalty kill percentage. They've yet to let up a power play goal this year, 20 for 20 on the penalty kill, and that's hopefully we can ruin that for them. But that just speaks to the volume of their unit right there.
Pre this home weekend, we got Waterloo in the power play. We're sitting at 60% in the Fall Classic. That dwarfs Waterloo's power play, and I think we keep our heads clear. We talked to Matt Lipcsak about John Franco Casero having a quarterbacking role. I think you put 2 and 2 together, we can produce, and it'll be huge for the Phantoms.
And with the last 2 Muskegon games, they didn't have their leading scorer, Igor Afanasyev. Well, it'll be interesting to see here if he's going to be ready in time to go for that game Sunday, because if he's playing, that's another player you're going to have to keep your eyes on.
Absolutely there, Sean. However, we've heard from Brad Patterson several times. It's not necessarily who's on the ice, and yeah, you always want to keep an eye out for when those players are on the ice. But it's a team game. If you shut down one player, chances are that another player is going to be able to step up and kind of fill his role. And we saw that this past weekend against Muskegon. So throw him on the ice. Yeah, you're adding another factor, however, but I don't feel that he is that big of a piece right now. So early in the year that that's 2 games that had him against us. Not saying that it's going to make a huge difference. Might make some, but the Phantoms definitely have their work cut out for them in Muskegon on Sunday.
Guys, we can harp on star players on Muskegon. At the end of the game, we're going to play our best game. We're taking it to their house now. Muskegon failing to bring out the Michigan jerseys against us. We're going to let them know that Ohio State, is here to play, and we're going to, let them see what we plan to offer. But Muskegon's just the big talking point because it's our first 3 games. But, this is not the only team we're going to play this season. We've got Waterloo, we've got Cedar Rapids, we've got Dubuque. Boys, Waterloo is one of those games that I am really, really looking forward to. It's going to be a huge testament of our discipline, more so than our, skill and ability. It's, keeping our head cool during this game and making the team pay when they do draw a penalty against us.
And, we mentioned Waterloo's top penalty kill unit in the United States Hockey League, 100% on the year, 20 for 20. The power play going 4 for 11. So, also another great unit. But if we looked at the way the Phantoms were able to move the puck down in the Fall Classic in Cranberry, I think it's only going to open up passing lanes, opening up shooting lanes there on the power play that may result in a goal for them.
20 for 20 now.
Yeah, so, I mentioned this during the broadcast, during the games. I've been really impressed with those initial breakout passes and puck possession by the Phantoms. We need to see more of that. It's been excellent so far. Nice, clean, crisp passes. Now, looking at the games that Waterloo has played, 14 goals for, 10 goals against. They've scored at least 2 goals in every single game. So, essentially, we're going to look at the Phantoms need to at least put 2 on the board to probably win this. And Waterloo defensively has kind of flip-flopped both games. Let up 4 the first game, then 1. Then against Des Moines, let up 3. And then Central Illinois went back down to 1. So if it's following this pattern, maybe this is the perfect game for the Phantoms offense to get going.
And it's on an off night, too. Thursday night game, not typical here in the USHL, typically Friday, Saturday game. So maybe it's an opportunity for the Phantoms to jump on Waterloo early, go up big, and able to kind of hang on to that lead. But Waterloo had 2 games go to overtime, one going to a shootout, a overtime loss to the Central Illinois Flying Aces, and a shootout loss to the Des Moines Buccaneers. So both games that went to overtime ended up not going in Waterloo's favor. Not saying the Phantoms want to play another overtime game, but they definitely have the capability to get on them early if they do go into overtime and finish that game off in the extra time.
I'd like to go back to a second because I actually want to disagree with you for a second, Sean Takachi. I don't think we should, count on those 2 goals. We need to. You never ever want to play down to your opponents. You want to always play above them. You don't want to just score 2 goals and accept that and be okay with that. You want to always push as hard as you possibly can against these teams. Take a look at some of the games that we had. Take a look against the first Muskegon game. We got 1 goal on them. They didn't score. And then whether or not they let up, last seconds of the game, they get a goal, and it's devastating for us.
That's not exactly what I was saying. I'm saying at least a target market, and I understand you don't want to say 2 goals and we're good. It's more or less that considering where the offense is right now, we're going to need for it to get going during these games because, I'm with you on that. Like, anytime, any game, you want to put as many on the board as you humanly can because a game can turn, especially in junior hockey, as quick as possible.
Yeah, Sean, you make a good point there. You want to always play up to your opponent, and you made a good point about the offense getting moving. I think the offense is one thing that, if you look at the scoring opportunities we've had and the saves that these opposing goalies have had, take a look at some of the saves Busey's had to make. Unbelievable saves on great opportunities for the Phantoms. Those are goals that are eventually going to go in. Those are the plays that are eventually going to click. We look at the Fall Classic, and how many of those dirty, gritty goals did we have? Goals that are rebounds, goals that are redirects, goals that are down in the lower slot and that we're just digging for. I think that's the key to getting the offense going for the Phantoms, and I'm anticipating to see how it plays off against, Waterloo. Waterloo has a great defense, but the Phantoms have speed and size, and I think both of those things are going to come in handy for the Phantoms.
And the Phantoms having to take on Matej Blumel, the leading scorer for the Waterloo Blackhawks, with 6 points already this season. He totaled 18 all of last year. So Blumel definitely getting it done early for the Blackhawks. But looking ahead at Dubuque, a team that Youngstown has already played once, and that was one of the better hockey games that I have ever seen in person. That second period was some of the best hockey that I've definitely ever seen. Not many stoppages, just back and forth action. Dubuque getting that 4-2 victory, scoring that empty net goal late. But the Phantoms really had a late push there, and I honestly thought that they were going to be able to score that extra one and send the game to OT.
Dubuque facing, Justin Evenson, it's going to be a testament to John Moore if he can, be the difference maker. John Moore's had an excellent last 2 games. He's going to, have one at Muskegon first, and then he's off to Waterloo. He's sat on the bench to watch Waterloo. We're going to see if he can make a difference out there on the ice.
Obviously, no speculation, but I mean, if this was me in my position, you have these 4 games. How are you breaking down this goaltender situation here? I mean, do you go with Moore? Do you go with Moore in the hot hand as last 2 games and maybe even overplay him, or where do you put in Evanson? What matchup do you think it works?
I think you play Moore until he fails. Moore hasn't, deserved time on the bench yet. I think he's played 2 great games the last 2 games, and you play him until he doesn't. We always, like to put some part of our podcast towards the Penguins, and you look at the Matt Murray, Marc-Andre Fleury. Matt Murray getting injured early in the season 2 years ago. Marc-Andre Fleury playing and continuing to play past Murray's healthy recovery because Fleury had that hot hand. You want to keep using the goalie to your advantage. This isn't preseason anymore. These games count, and you got to take everyone you can.
And you're not going to be worried about maybe him being a little bit tired during any of these games?
I could see where you're coming from, but I think in a goalie's sense, the mental fatigue is more so than the physical fatigue. Not at all knocking on a goalie's, physical abilities, but these goalies are going to have time on the bus to, relax and rest. They're not worried about driving all over the place. They're not worrying about, going home and, preparing a meal. Everything is taken care of for them on these road trips. All you have to think about on these road trips is, mentally preparing yourself and thinking about your movements, thinking about your positioning. Keep your glove hand up, keep your stance low. All of these things are the only things that you worry about on road trips. We've talked about my college days as a goalie, and the away games were the better ones. Thinking about just facing your opponent, going through game film, figuring out what the player's tendencies are. You're not worried about the at home responsibilities that you would have at a home weekend, and I think that's where you look a little bit more towards John Moore. Not saying John Moore is going to play all 4 games, but if his hand's hot, keep him in my opinion.
Well, one thing is for certain, I am very glad that I do not, or none of us have to make that decision. Obviously, Brad Patterson and the coaching staff having an interesting time here to plan for 4 games and 2 goaltenders. Going to be interesting to see how the team is made up and how each goalie gets some action this weekend. But after this long road trip, we get to come back home for some history making here in Youngstown for banner raising night. First time that a banner has been raised since the 14-15 Anderson Cup winning season. So going to definitely be exciting. And on top of that, all-you-can-eat seats are back once again. So make sure you come out to the game to see that banner raised as well as get your all-you-can-eat seats. Boys, do you have any final thoughts?
I mean, we did this last time, kind of put Lipper on the spot. I want to hear your picks, boys. Who's scoring the first goal against Muskegon on Sunday?
If I had to go off of any predication of who's playing well right now, I would probably have to go with the Mellis.
I want us to stay with tradition and say Robertson. However, I'm really enjoying watching Brett Murray play. If he posts himself right in front of that net like he did at the Fall Classic, there's no way that he's not getting a goal this weekend. So I'm going to go with Brett Murray for my pick.
You know what, boys, I got to go with Trevor Kuntar. He really impressed me. I was so excited. He had a streak down the left side where he went around the back of the goal and tried to wrap around. Unfortunately, Busey had him figured out, but I think those tricky plays are what's going to get us a goal early.
That was a beautiful play too.
It was.
Watching that up in the booth as it happened, I was sitting there waiting for it to go in, and it just didn't.
Well, unfortunately, the puck not going the Phantoms' way, but hopefully it does on this long road trip, starting off with Muskegon, then at Waterloo, at Dubuque, and in Cedar Rapids. Be sure to tune in to all the broadcasts available on Hockey TV, or if you're unable to subscribe to Hockey TV, follow along on the Phantoms Twitter page at Ytown Phantoms for all the updates throughout the game. Well, for Jake Drzynski and Sean Takachi, I'm Sean Stewart. Thanks for listening. This has been Inside Phantoms Hockey.